She walked past him, her diamond bracelet catching the light, yet she refused to shake the black man's hand. The room froze. What she didn't know, that calm, confident black man quietly controlled a $4 billion deal her company was desperate for. 5 minutes later, the handshake she denied cost her everything. And what happened next shocked the world. Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe for the full story. The marble floors gleamed beneath the crystal lights of the Voss Tower. Every corner of the boardroom smelled of old money, ambition, and arrogance. Executives murmured in polished tones, their designer suits crisp, their smiles rehearsed. Then he walked in. Evan Cole, tall, composed, and dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His presence didn't shout. It commanded. His skin, rich and dark, carried a quiet confidence that needed no validation. He was the last to enter, yet somehow it felt like the room had been waiting for him. At the head of the table sat Clara Voss, the CEO of Voss Enterprises, a woman known as much for her wealth as for her ego. Her company had been courting investors for months, desperate for capital to save a crumbling expansion. When Evan approached the table, he offered a polite smile and extended his hand. Clara glanced at it, then looked away. Her diamond bracelet caught the light as she folded her arms. "I don't shake hands with staff," she said sharply, her voice slicing through the silence. The room froze. Every face turned toward Evan. A few stifled smirks, some uncomfortable glances, and one intern actually dropped his pen. But Evan didn't flinch. He simply retracted his hand, smiled again, and took a seat at the far end of the table. His calmness was unnerving, the kind of silence that carried power, not weakness. The meeting began, but the air was heavy. Clara led the presentation, her tone condescending whenever she addressed Evan. She didn't know who he was, and she hadn't bothered to ask. When the financial officer mentioned potential investors, Clara gestured toward the other guests, but skipped over Evan entirely. Finally, after 20 minutes, she turned toward him with a forced smile. "So, Mr. Cole, right? Which firm did you say you're with again?" Evan's eyes met hers, unblinking. "I represent the Cole Group," he said softly. A few executives shifted in their seats. The name sounded familiar, but Clara didn't catch it. She chuckled. "Ah, yes. Are you here on behalf of your employer?" Evan's lips curved just slightly. "In a way," he replied. The CFO spoke up, voice trembling. "Actually, Ms. Voss, the Cole Group is one of the largest private equity firms in the world." A faint line appeared between Clara's eyebrows. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "The Cole Group," the CFO repeated, "controls over $60 billion in global assets." Silence. Even the hum of the air conditioner seemed to pause. Evan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "But please continue," he said gently. "I'm very interested in hearing how you treat your partners." Clara's throat tightened. The diamond bracelet that had gleamed moments ago now felt heavy on her wrist. Across the table, every executive suddenly looked smaller. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone could feel it. Evan's expression didn't change. His voice remained steady, warm even. But beneath that calm exterior was a storm of principle, the kind of dignity that couldn't be purchased or pretended. He took a slow sip of water, then looked directly at Clara. "You know," he said quietly, "handshakes are a simple thing, but sometimes they tell you everything you need to know about a partnership." No one spoke. The sound of the glass touching the table echoed like a gavel. Clara forced a smile, but her hands trembled slightly. She tried to regain control of the room, but control had already left. With that handshake she refused. And somewhere deep inside her mind, a quiet fear began to grow. The meeting dragged on, but the tension was suffocating. Every time Clara spoke, her once commanding tone cracked slightly, like glass under pressure. The arrogance she wore so confidently was starting to slip. Evan sat there silent but steady, not reacting, not retaliating. He didn't need to. His presence alone had changed the entire rhythm of the room. He wasn't angry. He'd faced worse. He'd been underestimated in boardrooms before, dismissed, ignored, labeled as the help, when, in truth, he was the one quietly writing the checks that kept their companies alive. To him, respect wasn't about ego, It was about values. And in that room, values were the one thing Clara Voss didn't seem to understand. As the CFO finished his presentation, Evan flipped open a small leather notebook. The sound of the page turning was louder than Clara's voice. "Mr. Cole," she finally said, forcing a smile, "perhaps you could tell us what the Cole Group is looking for in an investment like ours." Evan looked up slowly. "We're looking for partnerships built on integrity," he said. "Not just profit." Her smile tightened. "Of course," she said quickly. "We're a family-run company. Integrity is at our core," he nodded slightly. "Interesting," he said, "because a few moments ago you refused to shake the hand of someone you thought was beneath you." The words landed like thunder. The room froze again, every executive now completely still. Clara's face went pale. I didn't mean—" "I'm sure you didn't," Evan interrupted gently. "But intent doesn't erase impact." He stood up, closing his notebook. His calm voice carried the weight of truth. "You see, Ms. Voss, partnerships are like people. You only find out their real worth when the masks come off." He turned toward the exit. The silence behind him was so deep you could hear the city traffic faintly through the windows. Just as he reached the door, Clara spoke again, desperation seeping into her voice. "Wait, Mr. Cole, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Please, let's discuss this again. We value your time." He paused, looking over his shoulder. His eyes were steady, but his words were sharp as glass. "5 minutes ago you saw me as invisible," he said. "Now suddenly I'm valuable?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Evan gave a faint smile. "I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for partnerships that see people before profit." Then he nodded politely, turned, and walked out. The door closed softly behind him, but it felt like a thunderclap. Outside, the world was calm. The city buzzed beneath the tower's glass windows, unaware that a $4 billion decision had just shifted direction. Evan walked to his car, a sleek black Bentley, his assistant waiting beside it. "Should I cancel the Voss deal, sir?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. He looked up at the tower, at the reflection of the sky against its windows. "Cancel it," he said quietly, "and move the $4 billion fund to Fairchild Industries. They treat people like people," his assistant nodded. As he got into the car, Evan leaned back, staring out at the skyline. The city lights shimmered like diamonds, the same way Clara's bracelet had when she refused his hand. Except now that light no longer meant power. It meant loss. 2 days later, the once bustling boardroom at Voss Enterprises felt like a tomb. The glass walls reflected tired faces and restless feet. Clara Voss sat at the head of the table, her posture perfect but her spirit fractured. The news had just come in. Cole Group officially pulled out. The $4 billion deal that was supposed to save her company was gone. And worse, within hours, other investors followed. It was as if the financial world had collectively turned its back on her. Word spreads fast in high circles, and respect travels even faster than money. Her CFO stood up nervously, clutching a tablet. "Ma'am," he said softly, "our stock dropped 12% this morning. By noon it might hit 20. Clara rubbed her temples. "Find another investor," she snapped. "Call everyone." "We already did," he said hesitantly. "But no one's answering." She slammed her hand on the table. "What do you mean no one's answering?" The CFO took a shaky breath. "Ma'am, after what happened with Mr. Cole, nobody wants to be associated with us." The words cut through her like ice. That one moment, that one refused handshake, had turned her billion-dollar empire into a sinking ship. For the first time in her career, Clara Voss had no control. Hours passed. The office lights dimmed as employees quietly gathered their things. She could hear whispers in the hall, words like layoffs, bankruptcy, and coal. She stared at her reflection in the glass wall. The diamond bracelet still gleamed on her wrist, the same one that caught the light when she'd turned away from Evan Cole's hand. She couldn't escape the irony. That diamond once symbolized success. Now it mocked her, a bright reminder of her blindness. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Clara Voss," she said, her voice tight. "Ms. Voss," came a calm voice on the other end. She froze. "Mr. Cole?" "Yes," Evan replied, his tone polite but distant. "I wanted to inform you personally that the deal has been closed." with Fairchild Industries. They've shown remarkable integrity. She swallowed hard. Mr. Cole, please, I made a mistake. I didn't realize who you were. He was silent for a moment. Then he spoke softly. That's the problem. Clara, respect shouldn't depend on who someone is. Her breath caught in her throat. You see, he continued, I grew up in a world where people saw my skin before my skill. I learned early that character isn't proven when you're respected, it's revealed when you're not. Her eyes welled up. I understand now, she whispered. I hope you do, he said gently. Because the cost of disrespect is always higher than the cost of humility. The line went quiet. Before she could respond, the call ended. She sat there staring at her phone, the weight of his words echoing louder than any corporate loss. Outside, the night stretched endlessly across the city skyline. Somewhere, Evan looked out from his penthouse window, calm, collected, not celebrating her fall, but reflecting on the lesson life had taught him long ago. True power doesn't shout. It stands quietly, waiting to be seen. And sometimes, silence can be the loudest revenge. Days passed. The once bustling Voss Enterprises now looked like a ghost ship drifting through financial storms. Empty desks, silent hallways, emails unanswered, investors gone. Clara sat alone in her corner office, the city skyline glimmering beyond the glass. The very same skyline that once looked like opportunity now looked like judgment. She had lost billions, but what haunted her most wasn't the money. It was the moment. That brief, careless second when she looked into Evan Cole's eyes and chose arrogance over respect. Her assistant entered quietly, placing a stack of documents on the desk. The auditors are here, she said softly. And the press is waiting outside. Clara didn't respond. Her mind was far away, somewhere between regret and realization. She picked up her phone again, scrolling through old messages, searching for Evan's number. She wanted to apologize, not as a CEO, but as a human being, but she couldn't bring herself to dial. What would she say? That she finally learned what humility means? That she now understood the weight of a handshake? Instead, she opened a news article on her screen. Headline, Fairchild Industries partners with Cole Group in historic $4 billion expansion. Beneath it was a photo, Evan shaking hands with the Fairchild CEO, smiling. The same calm expression, the same steady dignity. She stared at the image, her throat tightening. That could have been her. That partnership, that headline, that future. But she'd lost it, not because of bad numbers, but because of bad behavior. That night, Clara did something she hadn't done in years. She drove alone to the south side of the city, to a neighborhood she'd long ignored. There in a small community center, children played basketball, their laughter echoing through the cracked court. And in the corner, a mural caught her eye, a painting of two hands shaking, one light, one dark, beneath the words, Respect builds bridges. She stood there silently, tears welling in her eyes. The janitor nearby noticed her. Beautiful, isn't it? He said. My son helped paint it. Said it reminds him of the man who built this center, Mr. Cole. Clara froze. Evan Cole? The janitor nodded proudly. Yes, ma'am. He funds programs for our youth, teaches them business, respect, and confidence. He says a handshake can change a destiny. Clara's vision blurred. She looked at the mural again, and for the first time, the meaning hit her like lightning. The handshake she refused wasn't just a gesture. It was an opportunity to connect, to learn, to see someone for who they truly are. In that moment, Clara realized that her fall wasn't a punishment. It was a lesson, one she needed desperately. As she drove home under the city lights, the diamond bracelet on her wrist shimmered once again. But this time, it didn't feel like power. It felt like memory. A reminder of the man she'd misjudged, a symbol of the respect she'd lost, and the humility she'd finally found. It took Clara 3 weeks to find the courage. 3 weeks of silence, headlines, and sleepless nights replaying one scene over and over. That moment she refused his handshake. She'd lost everything that glittered and gained everything that mattered. Now she needed to face the man who unknowingly changed her life. Evan Cole's office sat atop a glass tower that touched the clouds, elegant, modern, yet peaceful. It wasn't decorated with wealth. It was decorated with purpose. Photos of scholarships, community events, young entrepreneurs, reminders of what success was truly meant to build. When Clara entered, she almost forgot to breathe. He was there, standing by the window, hands folded behind his back, watching the sunset paint the skyline gold. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Her voice trembled when she finally did. "Mr. Cole, thank you for seeing me." He turned slowly, meeting her eyes. Calm, kind, but firm. "Ms. Voss," he said. "Please have a seat." She sat down, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I won't take much of your time," she began softly. "I came here because I owe you an apology." Evan didn't speak. He simply listened. She took a deep breath. "That day in the boardroom, I judged you before I knew you. I let arrogance blind me, and I lost more than a deal. I lost my integrity." Her voice cracked. "I thought power came from status, from titles, from how others see you. But I was wrong. Power comes from respect. And I disrespected the wrong man." The room was silent, heavy with sincerity. Evan finally walked closer, his tone steady. "Clara," he said quietly, "it's not about losing a deal. It's about learning the value of people. You're not the first to forget, and you won't be the last." She looked up, eyes glistening. "You had every reason to humiliate me. But you didn't," he smiled gently. "Because I wasn't raised to return disrespect with hate. I was raised to return it with an example." Those words broke her completely. Tears streamed down her face. Evan handed her a handkerchief, the same way he had once offered his hand. This time she accepted it. "I don't expect forgiveness," she whispered. "But I wanted you to know I've changed. I'm rebuilding differently this time." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe," he said, "the loss was never a punishment. Maybe it was a restart." She looked up, eyes wide. "A restart?" "Yes," he said. "Sometimes we lose millions to gain meaning. You lost a deal, but maybe you found yourself." For the first time, she smiled genuinely, not with pride, but with peace. "Thank you, Mr. Cole," she said softly, "for teaching me something no contract ever could." Evan extended his hand again, the same one she'd refused weeks ago. But this time, she didn't hesitate. She stood up and shook it firmly, tears in her eyes. A handshake, the same gesture that once destroyed her empire, now rebuilt something far greater, her humanity. As she left the office, Evan watched her go, not with satisfaction, but with quiet grace. He knew that true victory isn't making others fall. It's helping them rise after they do. And in that moment, both of them, the billionaire and the humbled CEO, finally understood that respect is the real currency of the world. 1 year had passed. The city skyline glowed just the same. But for the people who had lived this story, everything had changed. Voss Enterprises, once a symbol of pride and power, was now a story of rebirth. Clara Voss sat in her new office, smaller, simpler, but filled with something her old empire never had: meaning. The walls weren't covered with expensive art anymore. Instead, they carried photographs of her new team, diverse, passionate, full of life. On one wall hung a framed image of a handshake, one white hand, one black. Underneath, in golden letters, it read, "Respect is the first deal every leader must make." That quote wasn't just decoration. It was a daily reminder of the day she almost lost everything, because she forgot what truly mattered. Clara had spent the year rebuilding not just her company, but herself. She started initiatives for underprivileged entrepreneurs, offered scholarships to students from struggling backgrounds, and created mentorship programs that focused on ethics before profit. She no longer measured success in billions. She measured it in people helped, dreams supported, and lessons learned. Her assistant entered the room. "Ms. Voss, the new investors are here," she said with a smile. Clara nodded, closing her journal. "Send them in," she said softly. And as the door opened, she instinctively stood and extended her hand, a gesture she now treated like a sacred promise. Every handshake now carried a silent message. "I see you. I respect you." Across town, in a sunlit office atop Cole Tower, Evan Cole stood looking over the city. The world called him many things: billionaire, investor, philanthropist. But none of those titles defined him. What defined him was his purpose. He had expanded his foundation across countries, funding small businesses and community centers in places most investors ignored. His motto was simple: invest in people first, profit will follow. That morning, as he walked through his foundation's lobby, a young intern greeted him nervously. "Mr. Cole, sir, your story about the handshake. It changed my life," the intern said shyly. "It made me realize respect is everything," Evan smiled warmly. "I'm glad to hear that," he said. "Never forget. People remember how you made them feel long after they forget your success." The intern nodded, inspired. That evening, Evan attended an event at a community center, the same one he had helped build years ago. Children played basketball, their laughter echoing through the cool night air. On the wall was a mural, two hands shaking beneath the words, "Respect builds bridges." He stood before it, hands in his pockets, lost in thought. A small boy ran up to him. "Mr. Cole, my teacher says you're a billionaire. Is that true?" Evan chuckled softly. "Something like that," he said. The boy grinned. "Then you must be really powerful." Evan knelt down so they were eye to eye. "You know what's more powerful than money?" The boy blinked. "What?" Evan smiled. "Being kind when no one's watching." The boy thought for a moment, then nodded. "I'm going to do that too," Evan laughed softly. "That's the best investment you'll ever make." As the night settled and the city lights shimmered in the distance, Evan walked out of the center with a quiet smile. The world had given him wealth, but life had given him wisdom. He had learned that true greatness isn't in the empire you build, it's in the respect you show while building it. Remember, true power isn't in money or titles, it's in the respect and kindness you show every day. If this story inspired you, hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Facts, Psychology, and Motivational for more life-changing stories. Don't just watch. Let it change the way you live and lead.